I swear, she didn't even have to call me. Just one look from across the street and I was already halfway to her door. Elena, Mrs. Hart, that's what I used to call her before it stopped feeling right, stood in the doorway, hair pinned up the way women do when they're pretending not to care how they look. A soft gray sweater, sleeves pushed to her elbows, one smudge of dust across her cheek. She smiled like she wasn't used to asking for help, and that was exactly why I went. Could you? She started, but her voice caught halfway. Just a hand with this couch. It's heavier than it looks. The apartment smelled like something warm, vanilla, maybe, or the ghost of coffee. Afternoon light cut through the blinds in lines that crossed the floor, landing on her bare feet. I told myself to focus on the couch, not her. Sure, I said. Where do you want it? She gestured toward the far wall, but didn't move right away. For a second, we just stood there, me holding the armrest, her standing too close, the air between us carrying every quiet thing we weren't saying. When we lifted it, our fingers brushed. Just for a second. Her skin was warm, a little dry, like she'd been cleaning. I didn't mean to look at her, but I did, and she met my eyes like she'd caught me doing something I wasn't supposed to. Careful, she murmured, her voice low. I nodded, though I couldn't remember what I was supposed to be careful about. We shuffled the couch a few feet. She breathed out, a faint sound that somehow made the silence louder. When we set it down, she stayed crouched beside it, one hand still on the fabric, the other holding the edge of the cushion as if it could anchor her to something steady. I've been meaning to move this for weeks, she said finally, looking anywhere but me. I just didn't want to bother anyone. It's not a bother. I know. She smiled, tight, fleeting. You're kind to come. Kind. I wasn't sure that's what this was. I'd seen her out there before, watering her plants in that same gray sweater, pausing every time a car passed. I used to wonder if she was waiting for someone. Now, standing in her living room, the thought felt different. Closer. She straightened up, brushing her hands on her jeans. Thank you, she said. I didn't think it would be that heavy. It's fine, I said, then hesitated. Do you want it centered more? She turned to look, squinting at the space, and then, without a word, placed her hands on the back of the couch again. Maybe a little. I took the other end. Our arms brushed. Neither of us moved this time. The clock ticked somewhere behind us. Outside, a car door slammed. I heard it but couldn't look away. She wasn't smiling anymore, just watching me. Her mouth parted like she'd forgotten what came next. Then she let go of the couch, but her hand stayed where mine was, resting over it. It wasn't a grip, not really. Just the faint pressure of her palm, her thumb against my skin. Enough to make time stop. I didn't breathe, neither did she. And then, a knock at the door. She pulled back fast, as if burned. Oh, she whispered. I wasn't expecting. The sound came again, harder this time. She glanced toward the door, then back at me. Her eyes were wide, caught between apology and something else. Don't, she started, but didn't finish. I turned toward the door anyway, heart hammering. Whoever it was, they knocked again. And her hand, just before I stepped away, brushed mine once more, quick and deliberate, as if to say, wait. The knock at the door turned out to be nothing, just a delivery man with the wrong address. But by the time he left, the air between us had changed. Elena stood by the window, arms folded, staring at the empty street. The light had shifted. Evening pressed in soft and gold. I'm sorry, she said after a while. That must have looked strange. It didn't, I lied. She looked over her shoulder, a small smile that didn't last. You were always polite, she said. Even when you didn't have to be. That you were always. It hit differently, like we were standing inside something old, something we'd both been pretending not to notice. I leaned against the wall. You still have the same books on your shelf, I said, nodding toward the stack by the window. You used to tell us no one reads poetry anymore. Most people don't, she said, turning back. But I keep them around. For company. There it was, that faint edge of loneliness that slipped through when she wasn't guarding it. She rubbed her hands together, as if the memory embarrassed her. You know, she said softly. It's strange seeing you here like this. You were just a student once. Now you're... She didn't finish, and I didn't ask her to. For a moment, the silence felt too close. I tried to focus on something else. The chipped edge of her coffee table, the sound of traffic outside. But then she moved past me to reach for something on the counter, and her shoulder brushed my arm. It was barely a touch, but it stayed there like static. Sorry, she murmured, though she didn't move away right away. Her hair grazed my jaw as she leaned forward. I could smell her shampoo. Citrus, faintly floral, clean in a way that made me forget what I was supposed to do with my hands. Do you want coffee? She asked suddenly, her tone almost too casual. Sure, I said, though I knew she wasn't asking about coffee. She poured us both a cup. Her hands shook a little. Not much, but enough that I noticed. When she handed me the mug, her fingers brushed mine again. Slower this time. It wasn't an accident. She leaned against the counter beside me. You know, people talk, she said quietly, about things like this. Like what? Older women, younger men, neighbors. People always think they know what it means. Her voice trembled just slightly at the edges, but her eyes didn't move from mine. I don't care what they think, I said. Came out faster than I meant. Her breath caught, just enough to make me realize she'd been waiting for me to say something like that. Maybe for a while. The silence stretched again, thick, charged. Then, slowly, she reached out, fixing the collar of my shirt. Her knuckles brushed the side of my throat. She didn't pull back. There, she whispered, almost to herself. You always looked better when you stopped trying to hide. I swallowed hard, trying not to move. Her hand lingered, then finally fell away, though her gaze stayed. Neither of us said another word. Outside, the streetlight flickered on, washing the room in amber, and for the first time I didn't look away. The next day, she asked if I could help fix a shelf that had come loose in her study. I told myself it was nothing, just being neighborly again. But when I knocked and she opened the door, barefoot, hair still damp from a shower, the lie didn't hold. Come in, she said softly. It won't take long. The study smelled faintly of wood polish and rain. The window was cracked open, letting in the sound of dripping gutters. The shelf really was loose, one screw half out of the wall. I focused on it because it was the only thing that didn't look at me. She stood behind me as I worked, close enough that I could feel the air shift with her breathing. Thank you, she said. I tried to fix it myself, but I couldn't get it right. I tightened the screw, careful not to turn around. You shouldn't lift heavy things anyway. She laughed under her breath. You make me sound fragile. I turned then, not meaning to. You're not. For a moment we just looked at each other. Her lips parted slightly, her hand still holding the edge of the desk. Then my phone buzzed. The sound cracked the quiet like glass. I glanced at the screen, my friend, Jonah. You at Elena's again? I froze. She noticed. Something wrong. No, I said quickly, locking the screen. Just nothing. But she was already frowning. People notice things, she murmured. Even when we think they don't. The word we hung there, too heavy, too exposed. Elena, don't, she whispered. Not like that. I stepped closer anyway, the kind of instinct that ignored sense. I wasn't going to say anything bad. I know. Her voice softened, trembling between retreat and wanting. That's what makes it worse. Her hand brushed my arm as she turned to walk away, but I caught her wrist without thinking. Not tight, just enough to stop her. She went still. Neither of us breathed. The rain outside grew heavier, tapping against the glass. Her pulse thudded beneath my fingers. You shouldn't, she said. I know, I said. Still, neither of us moved. Her other hand rose slowly to my chest, as if testing how real I was. This isn't, she started, then stopped. Her eyes searched mine, searching for the right excuse to let go. She didn't find it. I could feel her breath now, warm and uneven. The space between us shrank until only hesitation remained. Her lips parted again, but before she could speak, before I could do something we'd both regret, The sound of the front door latch echoed through the hallway. Elena! A voice. A woman's. She jerked back fast, nearly stumbling. My sister, she mouthed. I stepped away, heart pounding, pretending to be busy with the shelf again. Her sister appeared in the doorway a second later, smiling. Oh, hi. Didn't know you had company. Elena's voice was too calm. He's just fixing something. I nodded, forcing a polite smile. But as her sister turned away, Elena's hand brushed mine again. Just once. Under the desk where no one could see. A silent thank you. Or a warning. I didn't know which. But I didn't move my hand either. It rained again that night. The kind of rain that drowned out everything except your own thoughts. I hadn't planned on seeing her. But her light was still on. And something in me just kept walking. Across the street. Up the steps. One quiet knock. When she opened the door, she didn't look surprised. Just tired. And beautiful in that way people are when they've stopped pretending they're fine. You shouldn't be here, she said. I know. But she stepped aside anyway. Inside, the room was dim. A single lamp, soft yellow. The faint smell of red wine and rain. She was barefoot again, wearing that same gray sweater. You always come when I don't ask, she said, voice steady but low. Do you want me to leave? She hesitated too long. No, she whispered. Something broke loose in that word. I stepped closer, just enough to feel the warmth of her. She looked up at me, eyes darker than the room, and I could tell she was trying not to. People will talk, she said. They already do. She exhaled, a small sound that felt more like surrender than breath. You don't know what this costs me. Then tell me. She shook her head, but her voice cracked. I've built my whole life around keeping things contained, predictable, safe. And do you feel safe right now? Her eyes flicked up to mine, glassy, almost angry. No. You make me forget why I ever wanted to. That was it, the breaking point. I moved before I thought, my hand brushing her hair back from her face. Her breath hitched, and I felt it against my wrist. Don't, she said, but didn't move away. I can't keep pretending this doesn't matter. Her hand came up then, pressing lightly against my chest. Not to stop me, just to feel the rhythm underneath. Her fingers trembled, but she didn't pull back. Every time you're near me, she whispered, I remember what it's like to want something I shouldn't. Her voice shook. Mine did too. Then stop pretending it's wrong. She closed her eyes, and I saw her fighting it. The rules, the years, the difference between us. But when she opened them again, all that was gone. I leaned in. Not all the way. Just close enough that her breath mixed with mine, her lips a breath apart. Her fingers tightened in my shirt. I could taste the electricity between us, that edge between fear and something worse. Then her phone lit up on the counter. A name. A man's voice on speaker, casual, too familiar. Hey, Elena. Just checking you got home okay. She froze. I stepped back, my pulse still hammering. She turned away, fumbling for the phone, her voice suddenly careful. Yes, I'm fine. Just finishing something. When she hung up, she didn't look at me. Just stood there, breathing hard, shoulders tight. Elena. Don't, she said, quiet but sharp. If you touch me now, I won't stop you. I didn't move. Neither did she. The rain kept falling, hard enough to drown the silence. And we stood there, one heartbeat away from everything we weren't supposed to want. The next morning, I tried not to look out the window. Tried not to think about her. But there she was again. Elena. Standing on her porch, phone pressed to her ear, face pale in the gray light. I told myself not to care. Then she looked up and saw me watching. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she hung up, turned, and crossed the street. No coat, no umbrella, just that same gray sweater, soaked dark by the drizzle. When I opened the door, she didn't wait for an invitation. She walked in, dripping rain onto the floor, and closed the door behind her. You shouldn't be here, I said, echoing her own words. I know. Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. You need to hear something before you find out from someone else. She didn't sit, just stood there, close enough that I could see the tremor in her jaw. "The man who called last night," she said. "He's not just some friend." My throat tightened. "Okay. He's my ex-husband." I blinked. "You said you hadn't spoken in years." "I hadn't, until last week. He's been coming by, saying he wants to make things right." She swallowed. "He saw you leaving my house the other day." The words hit harder than I expected. "So he thinks—" "He doesn't think," she cut in. "He knows. He asked me what we were doing." I stepped closer. "And what did you tell him?" Her eyes flicked up to mine. "That it was nothing." The silence that followed was unbearable. Nothing. She must have seen it on my face because she reached out, hesitant, trembling, and touched my sleeve. "I didn't mean it like that." "How else could you mean it?" "I panicked," she whispered. "He can ruin things for me, Noah. My job, my reputation, everything I've worked for." I exhaled, but it came out more like a laugh, bitter and soft. "So that's what this is? Just damage control?" Her fingers tightened around my arm. "No. God, no. You think I'd be here if it didn't mean anything? Then say it." Her hand fell away. "I can't." We stood too close for words to sound right. I could feel the heat coming off her, see the pulse jump in her throat. The air between us was thick, guilt and want fighting for the same space. "You should go," she whispered. "I don't want to." "I know." She turned her face toward the door, but didn't move. "He's coming by later, to talk, to see if there's anything left to fix." Something in me twisted. "Is there?" She didn't answer right away. Then softly, "There was, until you." She stepped past me, close enough that her shoulder brushed mine, her breath catching for a fraction of a second as she passed. I turned to follow her, but she stopped at the door, hand on the knob. Without looking back, she said, "Don't come over tonight." Then she left, leaving the door half open, the smell of rain and her perfume hanging in the air, and the kind of silence that doesn't fade. And still, even after she was gone, I couldn't make myself close the door that it was late when she called. Her voice was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes after too many hours spent arguing with yourself. "Can you come over?" she said. No explanation, no hesitation. When I got there, the house was dark except for the lamp in the living room. She was sitting on the couch we'd moved together that first day. Same gray sweater, same faint smell of coffee and rain. "You said not to come tonight," I reminded her. "I know," she said, "but I changed my mind." I stepped closer, careful. She looked tired but not weak, just stripped down to something honest. "He came by," she said. "My ex. He wanted to talk. I told him no." "Because of me?" Her eyes met mine. "Because of me." She stood, slowly. We were close enough now that I could feel the heat of her through the air. "I've spent years being careful," she said, "making every decision the safe way. Then you showed up, and I started breaking my own rules without even noticing." "Elena." "No, let me finish." Her voice shook. "You make me feel alive, and that terrifies me." I didn't speak. There was nothing left to say that wouldn't sound smaller than what was happening. She reached up then, brushing her fingers along my jaw, tentative, trembling. Her touch was light, like she wasn't sure she had the right. "I told myself I wouldn't do this," she whispered, "that it was wrong. But wrong doesn't feel like this." I caught her hand, held it against my face. For a second, we just breathed in sync, every inhale, every tiny tremor between us. Then she took a step closer. Our foreheads touched. Her hair brushed my cheek. Her breath found my lips but didn't cross them. The air felt electric, unbearably still. "If we do this," she said, "everything changes." I nodded. "Maybe it already has." Her hand slid down my arm, finding my fingers. She gripped them tightly, as if anchoring herself to the moment. "Tell me this isn't just curiosity," she said. "It isn't." She closed her eyes. "Say it again." "It isn't," I said, softer this time, and she finally smiled, small, broken, real. And then she leaned in, slow, certain, until our lips almost touched. Almost, because then she stopped. Her breath hitched, and she drew back just enough to look at me. "Noah," she said, "if I cross that line, I'll never pretend it meant nothing." "I don't want you to pretend," I said. For a heartbeat, she held my gaze, her thumb tracing the edge of my mouth. Then she kissed me. Once, barely there. Just enough to seal the truth we'd both been running from. When she pulled away, she exhaled like someone finally letting go of years of control. Her eyes softened. "Now you know." I nodded, every word caught in my throat. And for the first time, neither of us looked away. Morning came slow, like it didn't want to intrude. The rain had finally stopped, leaving everything washed and quiet. Light crept through the blinds in soft lines, landing across the couch where we sat. Still close, still unsure what to call what had just changed between us. Elena was the first to speak. "I didn't sleep," she said, her voice rough from silence. "Me neither." She smiled faintly, eyes tracing the floor. "It feels strange, doesn't it? How something can finally happen and still feel impossible." I watched her fingers play with the edge of her sleeve. "You don't regret it?" She looked up, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't hesitate. "No," she said simply. "Do you?" I shook my head. That was enough. She leaned back against the couch, exhaling softly. "You know, when I met you, really met you, I thought it was just curiosity. The way younger people look at older ones like they're a mystery they can solve. And now I think you see me too clearly." She paused. "That scares me more than the age difference ever did." I moved closer, just enough for our knees to touch. "You don't have to be scared of being seen." Her hand found mine, slow, deliberate. Our fingers interlaced easily, as if they'd been waiting for that shape. "I used to think love was supposed to look a certain way," she said. "Someone your age, someone who fit into my world neatly. But that kind of love always felt like a performance. And this," she smiled. A quiet, unpolished kind of smile. "This feels like breathing after holding it too long." The room smelled faintly of rain and the faint trace of her perfume from last night. Outside, the neighborhood was waking up, doors opening, car engines starting. But in that room, time felt slower, softer. I brushed a strand of hair from her face, and she didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned in until her forehead rested against mine. Her skin was warm, steady. "I don't know where this goes," she murmured. "I don't know if people will understand." "I don't need them to," I said. "Just you." For a moment, she stayed like that. Eyes closed, hand in mine, her thumb drawing small circles against my skin. Then she whispered, "You're going to make this harder to let go of. Maybe it's not something we're meant to let go of." She laughed softly, half a sigh. "You always say things that sound too simple for how complicated they are. Maybe that's why they work." She smiled again, and this time it reached her eyes. She leaned in and kissed my forehead, slow and certain, the kind of gesture that felt like both an ending and a promise. When she pulled back, she didn't move away. She just stayed there, her hand still in mine, her head resting against my shoulder as the world carried on outside. No words left to say, no need for any, just quiet, just us. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?